So this is my 8.4 assignment, and here are Dan's results compared to his normative data as when he did the tests, and I'll just run through how well he did in these tests and what he's going to improve on. So for test 1, I chose the vertical jump test for Dan. As in football, it is vital that the player can reach the ball high in the air when dealing with aspects of the game such as attacking or defending crosses. This is especially vital in certain positions, and as Dan is a centre-back, this part of the game is important as he will need to cancel out his opponent's abilities in the air to cancel out their threat of scoring. Dan's strengths of this test were how he did manage to get an average score, meaning that on average he will be able to challenge with his opponent. However, he still may come against an opponent who may have scored a better average result, meaning that they could well beat him competitively. So to improve Dan's vertical jump score, I would have him take part in some activities that increases the power in his legs. This could be doing something such as some standing board jumps during interval training, whilst holding a medicine ball or weights in each hand. The medicine ball should weigh 15 kilograms due to how Dan already goes to the gym and lifts weights. However, he shouldn't be carrying a medicine ball which is close to his 1 rep max, as this would start testing and increasing his strength instead of power. Dan would need to do around 5 repetitions and 4 sets to make sure that it's increasing his power. If he wanted to test for strength, he could limit the reps, and if he wanted to test for muscular endurance, he could increase the reps. As Dan gets a better score, then he can carry heavier weights. Dan could do this activity once a week, as he will need to work on other factors of his game, and he will also need rest days during the week so that he doesn't get fatigued and risk injury. To reduce tedium, the next week he could start doing the board jumps, holding the weight still, but have someone crossing the ball for him to either have him clear away from the goal or score. This also will just help the suitability and get Dan's mentality correct for game situations. I chose the second test, the 35-metre sprint test. As in football, it is vital that you are fast so that you can latch onto loose balls or passes, or in a defender's and Dan's case, catch up to an attacker to intercept and tackle the ball away. And Dan proved how he will be extremely effective at chasing down attackers due to how he scored an excellent result in his 35-metre sprint test. This is so important as it will be a big challenge for attackers to get away from him, meaning they have to limit their touches of the ball, and it is more likely that they have poor touch or shoot the ball wide. This is, of course, will be a huge strength for Dan. However, he can still improve, seeing he improved each time he did this test. And to do this, he could do shuttle runs of around 20 metres during interval training, but have him pull along a parachute on his back to increase resistance so he can increase the power behind his legs, which will be able to propel him. He should do 3 reps in 4 sets so that he won't fatigue, as otherwise he will end up working his cardiovascular fitness instead of speed. Again, Dan would only be able to do this once a week due to how he needs rest days and improve on other aspects of football. But to reduce tedium the next week, I would set up cones 20 metres apart where Dan would run to each one, receive a pass it back with 1 touch, and then run to the other cone 20 metres away for him to receive the other pass, and so on. He could do this with 6 repetitions and 3 sets. The third test I chose was the 1 rep max test. I chose this test as strength is vital in football, especially for defenders like Dan. This is because defenders need to be able to push the attackers off the ball so that they can stop them from proceeding on the goal and scoring. Dan scored a strong above average result, which means that he will be able to challenge many attackers in pursuit of stopping them from scoring by holding them off the ball. This would be a huge strength in his game, as it would mean that his team would be less likely to concede and ultimately help him win the game. However, weakness of him being too strong would mean that attackers may be more inclined to go down and gain a foul if they feel enough force from Dan. To improve his strength, Dan would just simply start using weight on his upper body and arms. A good exercise for this would be interval training, bench presses doing 45 kilograms with 12 reps in 3 sets. This is good for training for strength, as if you did a smaller weight of more reps, then you would be testing for muscular endurance. Dan would do this again only once a week for the 2 weeks, as he needs to make space for training other footballing factors and also needed rest days to prevent strain and injury. However, for week 2, I can reduce tedium of this test by instead doing some push-ups and press-ups, changing the exercise up. He could do 20 of each doing 2 sets, as this would help increase his arm and core strength. The 4th test I chose was the yo-yo test, and this is a great test for the suitability for football. It was perfect. Although most running will be done in the midfield, defenders may have to work hard if the midfield gets overrun and it is attack after attack. Either way, Dan again scored an incredible result, meaning that he'd be able to work at a higher standard for longer whilst his opposition fatigue, giving him the advantage and strength to tackle against sloppy attackers. It will be unbelievable if Dan could beat this score, but I believe if he did drills such as continuous or fartlek training, as this may be tedious, it is very effective in increasing cardiovascular endurance. Dan could do continuous training, running, jogging at his own pace for around 30 to 40 minutes to make sure that he'll be working his cardio. He'll only be able to do this once a week due to how physically exhausting it will be. To reduce the tedium on the 2nd week, he could dribble the ball for sections of this run to improve his control, whilst he also will be able to work on his cardio. And he'll also be able to work on his ball skills, which would also increase his suitability. The 5th test I chose was again cardiovascular fitness 1 mile run test. It's essential in football, and this test is different to the yo-yo test as it could be done outdoors, which adds to the suitability of football. Dan scored a good result, which means he has room to improve, as although he may be able to carry on playing at a high standard compared to others on the pitch, there may be some who gained excellent scores who may be able to perform for longer than Dan. This would be a danger to his game, as he may lose focus and make rash decisions which could see him get sent off or result in his team conceding. So drills to improve this may be continuous or fartlek training, as fartlek will be suitable as how he can run on grass and wear boots to get a proper feel of how he would run in a game situation. He could run for 45 minutes, as that is a whole half of football, and he could do this twice a week. This would mean he'd be running 90 minutes, which will increase suitability for football again. He would have to run a whole length of a match. He can reduce the tedium the next week by adding in players which he may have to run after or tackle the ball. This will increase suitability again, meaning he will have adapted to the way the game will be played before even playing, as when he's running, he's not always going to have a clear path. He's going to be needing to tackle people, retrieve the ball. And the 6th and final test I chose was the Harvard Step test, which was suitable for football, as it would test the muscular endurance of Dan's legs. This is important due to how Dan will be playing on his legs for the whole game, and if his legs' muscular endurance is poor, then he may fatigue and he will not be able to tackle successfully. He may create more fouls, resulting in the opposition scoring goals. However, Dan had an excellent score, meaning that he is less likely to fatigue, and he will be able to keep a high standard performance and make important tackles to stop the opposition scoring. But he can still improve, and to do this, I would have him do a session on the spin bike, as it would work his legs entirely. He could work for around 45 minutes again, as that would be a half of a football match. The next week, Dan could cycle outdoors, as this would reduce his tedium, and he can also work on his legs.